Good evening. Welcome back to another session of Sister for Sister Story Time with your Sister ChayaFyah, the historian. We are currently reading the book Eden, The Knowledge of Good and Evil, 666 by Dr. Joy Jeffries Pugh. The book, if you would like to purchase it, is in the description box, as well as the PDF version. Okay, we are on the second chapter, Enoch. Thank you to Sister Lorette for making me go get the PDF version. That works much better for my eyes. Okay, here we go. Now let me share my screen. Okay, Chapter 2, Enoch. The lineage of Cain and Seth has presented somewhat of a dilemma as to who actually wrote the book of Enoch. The first Enoch mentioned in Scripture appears in Genesis 4:16 through 24 as follows: Cain, Enoch, Irad, Mehujael, Methusael, Lamech. Then in Genesis 5:1 through 32, another Enoch's genealogy is recorded as follows: Adam, Seth, Enos, Canaan, Mahalalel, Jared, Enoch, Methuselah, Lamech, Noah. Confusion over these two Enoch lineages has led to comments that the Bible's compilers were not sure if the writer of the book of Enoch was Cain's son or not. Therefore, they chose not to include it as one of the books in the Old Testament. Since Cain was the son of Satan, this may explain various esoteric teachings that are found within Enoch's book. On the other hand, the Enoch that God walked with and took without allowing him to die was the Enoch from Seth's lineage. Enoch, the seventh from Adam, Jude 1:14. This Enoch lived 365 years before he was translated or quickened / raptured. He is given reference throughout the Bible as a saint who had great faith in the Lord. By faith, Enoch was translated that he should not see death, and was not found because God had translated him. For before his translation, he had this testimony that he pleased God. Hebrews 11:5. The book of Genesis agrees with the book of Hebrews concerning God's relationship with a man named Enoch from Seth's lineage, where it states, Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. Genesis 5:24. In the beginning of man's history, God only allowed men to walk with him who were just and perfect. The Bible states that Noah walked with God. The Lord also told Abram, who will be discussed in a later chapter, to walk before him and be perfect. When these men did as God asked, they were rewarded for their devotion in following his commandments. They rightly placed their faith in the Lord as their one and only God. Therefore, Cain's own son, Enoch, was not the same Enoch that was so praised by God. And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bare Enoch. And he builded a city, and called the name of the city after the name of his son, Enoch. Genesis 4:17. Building cities was the trademark of the megalithic builders, who possessed skills acquired from Satan's sacred mysteries. This is the reason that the majority of information about Cain's son Enoch appears in esoteric literature instead of the Bible. It is quite possible that it was this Enoch who authored the book of Enoch. The very content of this work, which has always been highly praised and adored by secret cults, states that 200 fallen angels were cast to earth with Satan. These angels were led by a group called chiefs. These chiefs reported directly to Satan. Satan, in turn, had been created by Jehovah as his second in command and had been known as the beautiful Lucifer of heaven. The book records that Lucifer turned against the will of God and was cast out of heaven, along with 200 of his fellow angels due to their rebellion. Throughout history, the Book of Enoch has received praise by those practicing esoteric beliefs while being questioned as to its true authenticity amongst the Christian community. James Bruce, a Scottish explorer, found 3 surviving copies of the original book in Ethiopia. James Bruce is the direct descendant of Robert the Bruce, a famous Knights Templar. These surviving copies were translated to English in 1821 by a professor at Oxford named Dr. Richard Lawrence. There were also additional copies of the Book of Enoch later found at Qumran along with the Dead Sea Scrolls. A red flag arises here because Qumran is the famed site of a Jewish mystical religious sect known as the Essenes, who had mixed with the paganism lineages of Babylon. The Essenes professed a type of esoteric self-salvation theosophy that today is termed New Age philosophy. James Bruce, who is the descendant of the heavily Masonic and Templar family of Robert the Bruce, appears to be a key player in revealing this hidden knowledge found in the Book of Enoch. His involvement is, no doubt, the result of the Masonic order's close ties in history with the Essenes. One has to wonder if James's discovery was really an archaeological find, or was it just the recovery of the Book of Enoch at a planned and perfect time in order to instigate the transfer of traditional religious beliefs to that of New Age doctrine based on what is touted by the media as a credible and historical recoup of knowledge. The Essenes had a large following among the Dead Sea inhabitants during the lifetime of Jesus Christ. Their main focus centered on the Watchers, Satan's angels, and the unfair fall of mankind from the Garden of Eden. The fact that the Book of Enoch dealt with fallen angels who were able to assume human bodies and have relationships with women probably increased the question of its authenticity by Christians. The problem with acknowledging the contents of this book meant church leaders would have had to have accepted that the Watchers existed then and are still with us today. Such concern over fallen angels mating with humans should not have been a problem then or now. The Bible clearly states that this is what happened beginning with the book of Genesis. Even the book of Revelation informs believers that the coming Antichrist will be Lucifer in the flesh of a man. Therefore, the spiritual uniting / mixing with earthly flesh. Throughout the course of history, there have been stories of strange entities like the fairy people of Celtic legends, the incubi / demons who attacked women, and even today there are documented cases of humans claiming abduction by aliens. Unfortunately, the reality of the fallen angels' direct involvement with mankind has been kept hidden throughout the ages by secret cults like the Essenes, while Christians considered such scriptures to be allegorical and not fact. Therefore, it was vitally important among the brotherhood of secret societies to bring their worship of Satan through history, veiled and hidden from public scrutiny. It is vital that Christians come to terms with the not so hidden history of Satan and his fallen angels, as the Bible plainly records in the book of Revelation that the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. Revelation 12 and 9. This scripture can only mean one thing. Satan and his entourages are here with us now and have been throughout history. They have been manipulating our lives, our daily lives, affecting our genetic code, as well as hiding their wisdom and heritage among the most powerful elite cults. These evil beings and their human initiates are under the opinion that the illumination of Satan makes them superior. They have been the masterminds behind many deceitful acts that are slowly forcing the human race into accepting Satan instead of God as Messiah at the end of the ages. Deceit is and always has been the mode of operation regarding the practice of witchcraft. These illuminated ones are designing a future for mankind that includes making humans into cloned perfections called beautiful angels of light. They believe their scientific processes toward human perfection will direct mankind from a belief in the Creator to a belief in the created, therefore, fulfilling the prophecy that man will come to love the created more than the Creator. The book of Enoch states that Enoch was shown all things, including knowledge from the beginning by God. Enoch lists the fallen angels by name and says they have power with Satan as their leader. He records that these enlightened beings taught mankind all the sins that will ever exist. Enoch states he was shown the way the world and universe work by these beings. He established time and the correct teaching of it with a calendar utilizing the movements of stars, planets, moon, and sun. Enoch records that God was angry with himself because he had given angels a spiritual life that did not subject them to dying. God chose not to give wives to angels like he had done for Adam. Eve was created as a helpmeet for Adam so he would not be alone. Angels, on the other hand, were in abundance and lived in heaven where they were not lonely. Unfortunately, Satan and his fallen angels were jealous of the beauty of humans, thereby tempting Eve and the daughters of man in their retaliation. Because these spiritual beings mated with earthly women, they produced an interbred race of hybrids called giants. These mixed offspring were both spiritual and flesh. At death, these entities released evil spirits on the earth because their spiritual side could not ever re-enter heaven after their flesh perished. These evil spirits, who are known to walk the earth in search of a body that is willing to be opened up to them, are called demons. Demons have been exorcised from humans throughout history by highly skilled priests. In some of these cases, priests have lost their own lives trying to perform exorcisms because the demons are so powerful, according to Malachi Martin in his book, Hostage to the Devil. The first cases of delivering demon-possessed humans can be found recorded in the Bible. The following scriptures are but a small example of the many healings documented that were performed by Jesus and his disciples. And as he was yet a coming, the devil threw him down and tear him. And Jesus rebuked the unclean spirit and healed the child and delivered him again to his father. Luke 13:16. So the devils besought him, saying, If thou cast us out, suffer us to go away into the herd of swine. And he said unto them, Go. And when they were come out, they went into the herd of swine and perished in the water. Matthew 8:31 through 32. And when he had called unto him his 12 disciples, he gave them power against unclean spirits to cast them out and to heal all manner of sickness and all manner of disease. Matthew 10:1. Enoch records that the fallen angels who had been in heaven prior to their expulsion were not privy to all the secrets of God. They were jealous of God's supreme knowledge, as he had only given them a partial understanding of the mysteries of God. In retaliation, they decided to bring their skewed and evil teachings to mankind so humans might worship them as gods instead of Jehovah. Among the tellers of secrets to the first humans willing to listen was the fallen angel Azazel. He is credited with teaching the lineage of Cain the art of metalworking. He is described as having a goat-like head and is symbolized by the inverted pentagram of Satanism. Another fallen angel called Shemyaza is recorded as the teacher of magical crafts. Enoch relates that these angels are destined to receive extreme punishment from God at the end of ages. He further claims that he received his revelations of the future while he was in the presence of God, whom he calls the Ancient of Days. In fact, Enoch goes on to explain that the wicked will be destroyed through judgment because all creatures are accountable to God in the end. Enoch also said God warned him about the coming flood, as well as how mankind would continue after it to be reinfested with the Watchers. He went on to record that as time nears the day of judgment, the earth and its inhabitants will again be overrun with demons, just like it was in the days of Noah. According to the biblical record, during the lifetime of Noah, there were very few good people left on earth who believed in Jehovah. The book of Enoch ends with a futuristic vision of the New Jerusalem, as well as what Enoch describes as the making of a second Adam. It appears that by increasing mankind's knowledge of genetics, Satan and his fallen angels now have their deceptive plan in place to recreate their so-called second Adam. This Adam will be considered a genetically perfected and strategically mixed human being that never dies, a clone. Excuse me. Fragments of the Book of Enoch found at Qumran include a section called the Book of Giants. This section of the manuscript claims outright that the fallen angels came down upon mankind and produced offspring called giants. These angels are said to have also genetically experimented on humans and animals, which in some cases produced monsters. One cannot help but be reminded of our present day biogenetic experiments that are mixing human DNA with that of animals and vice versa. The Book of Giants states that back in those days, the angels could manipulate DNA or combine it, mix, an art that modern day geneticists have claimed they have only been capable of doing in this century. The section goes on to tell that all of the upheaval in Eden was due to Satan, who was cast out of heaven. It further states that Satan and the wicked angels who followed him lashed out at mankind because in their hearts they knew they were not able to retaliate against the Creator. They plotted to destroy God's creation by deceiving man into believing the fallen ones were the good guys. Satan and his fallen angels lied to mankind that it was they who held the sacred mysteries of heaven. They boldly professed that it was their craft that could give humans all wisdom and knowledge to become illuminated like God. Satan and his followers taught mankind that the creator was the bad guy who did not want to share his knowledge regarding the mysteries of life with those he created. They portrayed the creator of man as a selfish God. With Satan's temptation and lies, many people were deceived and they united with the fallen angels against Jehovah. The Book of Giants also reports that the fallen angels performed miscegenation, which was the interbreeding of different species of animals to produce something God would not have created. Today, the science of biogenetics is utilizing that same power of miscegenation. At present, our scientists are combining genes from frogs and tomatoes to allow tomatoes to grow in cold climates, mixing tobacco plants with eels so the plants glow in the dark, and interconnecting the DNA of monkeys, pigs, and cows with human DNA. Genetic engineering is the buzzword among the illuminated. Their goal is to perfect all living things through the transmutation of matter. Of key interest is their desire to perfect human DNA so that earthly immortality is the end result. The illuminated wish to live forever in perfected human bodies. Today, the vehicle being sought to lay claim to earthly immortality involves the process of cloning. Cloning is the science of fission through cell regeneration. Just like the fallen angels, our generation is attempting to play God. That, my friend, is in direct violation of God's will. Our world is identical to the days of Noah. Just look at the present influx of satanic knowledge that openly denies our creator, as well as sexual perversions, genetic manipulations, alien abductions, and the selfish love of mammon. The flood came upon Noah's generation without warning for these evil sins. The Bible promises that the second coming of Jesus Christ will also come without warning upon the generation that is likened to the days of Noah. We are that prophesied generation. According to the Dead Sea Scrolls, written in the Qumran community, there was some belief that Noah and Enoch had divine secrets in their possession. This is because the pillars of Satan's knowledge were recovered by one of Noah's sons called Ham. In Masonic ritual, there is an attempted resurrection of Noah by his three sons, Ham, Shem, and Japheth. The Masonic degree, known as that of the Ark Mariners or Mariners, reenacts the so-called resurrection secrets of Ham. The Essenes, the Jewish mystical sect of Qumran, recorded in their scrolls that it was these secrets from the son of Noah which were passed down through Moses to them. The secrets, they wrote, had been given to the Essenes to prepare their initiates for the end of days. A review of these Essene records indicates that they were updated and rewritten during the time of Jesus Christ. It appears that the Essenes, who had been heavily influenced by their captors, the Babylonians, were busy writing a parallel history and using real historical biblical names to justify their knowledge of hidden mysteries. They were hiding their real agenda under the auspices of a form of Christianity called Gnosticism. Gnostics use Enochian language called doublespeak so that the truth will not be revealed to the uninitiated. While their secrets did come from Ham, who rediscovered them after the flood, they were not Mosaic law or from the beliefs of God's chosen people. The Essenes were in actuality a continuation of the mixed lineage of Satan. It was safer for them to openly profess that they had acquired their secrets from Enoch, Noah, and Moses than to record that their mystical teachings were obtained from Satan through the lineage of Cain's son, Enoch, or Noah's rebellious son, Ham. Gnostic tricks of deceptively using biblical references are paramount with Masonic rituals. Secret societies like those of their predecessors, the Essenes, incorporate the use of Christian terminology in their organization to hide the real truth behind their degrees and initiations. All of Satan's bloodlines, which are overseen by the Order of the Illuminati, are taught to use Enochian language as a secret second dialect. This language incorporates a subliminal form of communication. It was once used by the ancient Babylonians along with Jewish priests practicing Kabbalah and mystical religion who returned from Babylonian captivity, as well as the Egyptians, Indians, and Aztecs. It was derived using numbers, symbols, and sounds. This cryptic language was believed to possess the power necessary to teach initiates the science of creating artificial life. The unusual science of so-called recreation using animated dead matter will be how the second Adam becomes incarnate on earth, thereby counterfeiting God's creation. This is why secret societies are enchanted with the esoteric knowledge that Enoch chose to impart. Elite members of these societies actively participate in a form of black magic called Enochian magic. Through this ancient craft of magic, skilled masters conjure up what they say are angels from amongst 6 planes of existence. It has been recorded that Sir John Dee, who was a famous Mason in the 1500s and who served Queen Elizabeth I, wrote extensively that he used Enochian magic to mingle with angels from other dimensions. Interestingly enough, the drawings that Dee made of these beings he called angels look exactly like the gray aliens that people are reportedly seeing and being abducted by today. In chapters to follow, we will discuss reports that have surfaced regarding those who use hallucinatory drugs having seen these gray alien beings and experienced them while they believed they were in another dimension. Even defectors from governmental positions employed as remote viewers will be discussed, as they claim to have seen these beings while projecting their mind from their body. And finally, a review of the literature surrounding folklore and myth filled with unusual claims of such strange creatures will be debated. For right now, it is important to understand that there are far too many similarities within different facets of our society to just take a backseat approach to what has been going on in our world for a long time. The Bible states forthright that God brought the great flood in Noah's day to destroy the Nephilim, giants, and the wicked flesh of Satan's lineage through Cain. Unfortunately, the death of the giants produced evil spirits called demons, which continue to this day to walk the earth and possess mankind. The fallen angels called watchers also returned after the flood to tempt Noah's son Ham. It was through Ham's rebellion and recovery of the pillars of knowledge that his lineage re-established Satan's hidden plan of mixing evil seeds within humanity. Ham's descendants, the Canaanites, were the very people God warned Moses and the Hebrew children not to intermarry with. Jehovah even commanded that his chosen people stay away from any tribe that intermingled with the wicked Canaanites, because they all worshiped the pagan crafts of Satan. Recent Archaeological discoveries of Canaanite copper figures identify and give proof as to their satanic practices. These ancient figurines, which are recorded as being their gods, date back to a period around 2000 BC. The statues are depicted with a serpent's neck and a head shaped like the hood of a cobra. The trait of cobra headdresses was prominent in wardrobes of the Egyptian pharaohs, Aztecs, and Mayans, possibly hiding the true fact that their skulls were also oversized to their bodies, like that of the cobra, therefore, all being members of Satan's dragon bloodline. The fact that the Canaanite figurines were made of copper, a conductor of electricity, is also important. Copper was one of the first metals known to man, and according to the World Book Encyclopedia, it was first used about 8000 BC by people living near the Tigris and Euphrates rivers near ancient Babylon. Around 6000 BC, the Egyptians were making ornaments and tools from copper. The fact that the art of copper spread onward to the Chinese, the Incas of Peru and South America, and to the American Indians has to indicate that all of these cultures had dealings at some point in time with the wicked vagabond seeds of Satan who survived the flood. Chapter 3, Noah. The biblical account of the great flood occurs in the book of Genesis. Jehovah calls on Noah to build an ark because he is the only man living who is a just man. It was not God's will to destroy all things. He wanted to save what was righteous, to replenish the earth and start over. The Lord instructed Noah on how to architecturally build the ark by telling him to make thee an ark of gopher wood. Rooms shalt thou make in the ark, and shalt pitch it within and without with pitch. And this is the fashion which thou shalt make it of. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, the breadth of it 50 cubits, and the height of it 30 cubits. A window shalt thou make to the ark, and in a cubit shalt thou finish it above. And the door of the ark shalt thou set the side thereof. With lower, second, and third stories shalt thou make it. Genesis 6:14 through 16. God gave Noah specific instructions regarding who was to enter the ark once it was completed. He wanted to free mankind of the evil that had plagued them since the Garden of Eden. The flood was designed to cleanse the earth and remove the evil lineage of Cain. God felt that Noah would resist Satan and the fallen angels after the flood. Therefore, a new covenant was reestablished between God and Noah's descendants. Unfortunately, Satan's temptations would still be around because he and the fallen angels were created spiritually immortal. God knew that if Noah's lineage rebuked their temptations, then Satan and his demons could not inhabit mankind. So God told Noah, whose name in Hebrew means comfort/rest, but with thee will I establish my covenant, and thou and thy sons and thy sons' wives with thee, and of every living thing of all flesh, 2 of every sort shalt thou bring into the ark, to keep them alive with thee. They shall be male and female, of fowls after their kind, and of cattle after their kind, of every creeping thing of the earth after his kind. 2 of every sort shall come unto thee, to keep them alive. And take thou unto thee of all food that is eaten, and thou shalt gather it to thee, and it shall be for food for thee and for them. Genesis 6:18 through 21. Further instruction was given to Noah regarding the animals entering the ark. God established his plan to include more clean rather than unclean beasts into the ark. It is evident from this command that God wanted that which was good to repopulate at a greater rate than those that were considered unclean. He explains to Noah, of every clean beast thou shalt take to thee by sevens, 7 pairs, the male and his female, and of beasts that are not clean by 2, the male and his female. Of fowls also of the air by sevens, the male and his female, to keep seed alive upon the face of all the earth. Genesis 7:2-3. The biblical account states that the rain came for 40 days and nights. Noah and his ark made it safely through the great flood. After many months of being in the ark, the Bible records, and the ark rested in the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, upon the mountain of Ararat. Genesis 8:4. Noah, his 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and their wives had survived the flood. God's covenant with Noah to keep evil at bay ended when Ham rebelled against God's commandment to refrain from evil temptations. Ham blatantly chose to follow the satanic pillars of knowledge he recovered, which had survived the flood. His discovery and rebellion against his father Noah will be discussed later. Right now, it is important to understand that through Ham's lineage, this deceptive hidden knowledge, first given to Cain's lineage from Satan, has continued to flourish and plague mankind to this very day. According to the book of Genesis, and the sons of Noah that went forth of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And Ham is the father of Canaan. Genesis 9:18. Ham became the father of the Canaanites through his son Canaan. He was the instigator who encouraged his family to return to the pagan ways that had existed prior to the flood. Ham's descendants are the genealogical root of how wickedness survived and continued its hold on mankind following the flood. This all came to pass according to the Bible. When Noah got drunk from wine he made from his vineyard, Ham uncovered his father's nakedness, which meant while Noah was drunk, Ham slept with Noah's wife. He then ran and told his brothers about his evil deed. Ham's 2 brothers, Shem and Japheth, immediately came to their father's rescue. They did not have sex with Noah's wife, but covered them by walking backwards. This sin is explained in Leviticus 20, which says, and the man that lieth with his father's wife hath uncovered his father's nakedness. When Noah awakened from his drunken state, he found out what happened, and he cursed the lineage of Ham's son, Canaan. He, in turn, blessed the families of Shem and Japheth. This angered Ham. Through Satan's temptations, Ham became forever marked by actively choosing to follow and indulge in the craft of sexual sin, thereby rebelling against Noah and God. Satan then led Ham to reconstitute the pillars of knowledge by interbreeding, and Ham's lineage immediately became the foundation stone that reestablished the genetic dragon king bloodline in ancient Babylon and Egypt following the Great Flood. Ham's sons include Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. The sons of Ham included many families, tongues, countries, and nations. The book of Genesis gives the following account of the lineage of Ham. And the sons of Cush, Seba, and Havilah, and Saptah, and Raamah, and Saptakah, and the sons of Raamah, Sheba, and Dedan. And Cush begot Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one in the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord, wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod the mighty hunter before the Lord, and the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, and Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh in the land of Shinar. Out of that land went forth Asher, and builded Nineveh, and the city Rehoboth, and Calah, and Rezin between Nineveh and Calah. The same is a great city. And Mizraim begat Ludin, and Anamim, and Lehabim, and Naphthim, and Pathrusim, and Casluhim, out of whom came Philistim and Captorim. And Canaan begat Sidon, his firstborn, in Heth, and Jebusite, and the Amorite, and Girgasite, and the Hivite, and the Archite, and the Sinite, and the Arvadite, and the Zemarite, and the Hamathite. And afterward were the families of the Canaanites spread abroad. And the border of the Canaanites was from Sidon, as thou comest to Gerar unto Gaza. Thou goest unto Sodom and Gomorrah and Admah and Zeboim, even Lasha. Genesis 10:7-19. The story of the flood has also been found to exist on clay tablets unearthed at the ancient Babylonian city of Nineveh, where Ham's lineage first settled after the flood. This account, like the one in the Bible, agrees that a certain God made the heavens and earth. Unfortunately, the two accounts are written from opposing sides of the event. In the Genesis version, Satan is portrayed as the wicked serpent that brings sin into the Garden of Eden. According to the Babylonian version, Satan is praised as being the light bearer who saved mankind from their intellectually darkened state in the Garden of Eden. This version goes on to portray Jehovah, or Enlil, as the jealous evil brother of the good God, Satan, Enki. The entire rendition of the Babylonian record is in direct opposition to the biblical account. The book of Genesis explains that the earth became evil because of Satan's temptations and genetically mixing with humans. Jehovah chose to destroy this ongoing mixing between Satan and mankind through the flood. The Bible calls Satan a dragon and identifies him with the name of Leviathan. Leviathan is a Canaanite word that translates as a dragon/serpent. Jehovah brought about the flood in an effort to remove these genetic seeds of the dragon lineage established through Cain from the earth. This effort would have been successful had Noah's son Ham remained true to his family's covenant with Jehovah. But as we have already learned, Ham became the weakest link whom Satan tempted and won over in an effort to continue his evil serpent lineage upon the earth following the flood. The rulers of the first dynasty of Babylon were the dragon kings, who arose from the genetically tainted lineage of Ham. Ham's grandson was Nimrod. He is symbolized as a fish that is depicted as half man and half scaled reptile, an indication of the return of the serpent's bloodline after the flood. Nimrod founded Babylon. Babylon is described in the book of Genesis as the area of the first organized religious rebellion against God following the flood. All religious cults and secret societies can trace their roots back to this rebellion at Babylon. Nimrod's son even went on to be crowned the second pharaoh of the Egyptian dynasty of dragon kings. His name was King Reneb because Ham was so instrumental in Satan's plan. The dragon kings honored him as their great master, the famed goat of Mendes. In sacred geometry, the goat of Mendes is symbolized as an inverted pentagram. Pentagrams were and still are used in the occult sciences to indicate those who are enlightened and have mastered the craft of black magic. The Bible explains that in the second coming of the Lord Jesus Christ at the end of the age, the goats will be separated from his sheep. The book of Matthew reads as follows: When the Son of Man shall come in his glory, and all the holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory, and before him shall be gathered all nations, and he shall separate them one from the other from another, as a shepherd divideth his sheep from the goats. And he shall set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left. Then shall the king say unto them on his right hand, Come, ye blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was an hungered, and ye gave me meat. I was thirsty, and ye gave me drink. I was a stranger, and ye took me in. Naked, and ye clothed me. I was sick, and ye visited me. I was in prison, and ye came unto me. Then shall the righteous answer him, saying, Lord, when saw we thee an hungered and feed thee, or thirsty and gave thee drink? When saw we thee a stranger and took thee in, or naked and clothed thee? Or when saw we thee sick or in prison and came unto thee? And the king shall answer and say unto them, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye have done it unto one of the least of these brethren, ye have done it unto me. Then shall he say also unto them on the left hand, Depart from me, ye cursed, into everlasting fire, prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungered, and ye gave me no meat. I was thirsty, and ye gave me no drink. I was a stranger, and ye took me not in, naked, and ye clothed me not, sick and in prison, and ye visited me not. Then shall they also answer him, saying, Lord, when saw we thee hungered, or athirst, or a stranger, or naked, or sick, or in prison, and did not minister unto thee? Then shall he answer them, saying, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye did it not to one of the least of these, ye did it not to me. And these shall go away into everlasting punishment, but the righteous into life eternal. Matthew 25:31-46. The goats nor their father Satan will never inherit heaven as their abode for eternal life, but are damned for all eternity to a lake of fire. Ham became the evil seed who refathered the nation of the goats after the flood. Because of his allegiance to Satan, Masonic history declares that Ham was not the true son of Noah. Their account teaches that Ham was really the son of a pharaoh from Cain's lineage, who perished in the flood. Masonic lore praises the fallen angels' mixed lineage of Cain as their so-called royal bloodline, unlike Christians who know it is a bloodline of sin. As we have already discovered, Satan does not have the necessary stones to create a royal bloodline. Therefore, he can only recreate what God first created by mixing and tampering with it. The Bible clearly states that Noah was from the lineage of Seth and that Ham was his son. Ham uncovered his father's nakedness and slept with his father's wife. Ham provoked Noah's wrath by sleeping with his wife, and then she gave birth to Canaan, which made Canaan Noah's stepson and also his grandson. The Bible clearly includes Canaan as a son of Noah in Genesis 9 and 18, but then explains that Ham is really his father. This is why Canaan and not Ham was cursed by Noah. Because of this sexual mixing of a son with his father's wife and its uncleanness, Jehovah instructed his chosen people, the Israelites, to never allow their families to intermarry with Ham's lineage. Ham's immoral sexual actions fueled secret societies to try and keep secret who Canaan's real mother was. Canaan's curse by Noah is symbolic of Jehovah's wrath against Cain. Ham performed a sexual sin against his father by sleeping with his wife, just as Satan performed a sexual sin against Adam by sleeping with Eve. We know the Bible does give credit to one stepfather being titled as father within a lineage. For example, Jesus is genealogically linked in Matthew 1 through 16 through his stepfather Joseph to King David. In actuality, because Jesus was the Son of God, he is really linked biologically to King David through his mother Mary in Luke 3:23 through 38, as Heli was Mary's father, not Joseph's. According to the oldest Masonic manuscripts, like the Edinburgh script, the founders of the craft were recorded as being from the lineage of Cain through his descendant Lamech. Lamech's children were Jabal, Jubal, Tubal-Cain, and Nehemiah. These children, according to Masonic history, recorded all sacred mysteries and pre-flood knowledge on pillars that survived the flood. The information on the two pillars was found and then inscribed on emerald tablets by Tubal-Cain's grandson Ham after the flood. The Edinburgh script maintains that the founder of these precious pillars of knowledge was the biblical Ham. The fact that Ham was led to rediscover this knowledge, according to this secret script, hinges on their records that he was really Noah's stepson and that his true father was a pharaoh from the lineage of Cain. Their historic record maintains that Ham came from the lineage of Cain and not from the lineage of Seth. This old manuscript makes it very clear that Ham was the grandson of Tubal-Cain and his father a pharaoh. It seems these manuscripts were desperately trying to hide the truth concerning Ham, Noah, and the sexual sin Ham had with Noah's wife. Ham is often referred to through the use of two other names within Masonic literature, Thoth and Hermes. He is venerated as a great archon of the dragon bloodline and is never referred to as having produced a son that was cursed by Noah. Ham, according to the teachings of Masonry, was the founder of the esoteric knowledge following the flood, which they and their offshoot cults have veiled through the ages. He is credited with possession of the wisdom and sacred architectural knowledge regarding how the pyramids had been constructed down to the very last stone. Ham's ownership of the emerald tablets offered him such arcane knowledge that he in turn used them to teach alchemy and its scientific progress toward human regeneration to his initiates. These emerald tablets were claimed to contain the most ancient of secrets regarding the Philosopher's Stone. The Philosopher's Stone was believed to possess great power that had the capability to transmit hidden knowledge to the master of the craft. It therefore became the most sought after key ingredient by those initiated into secret schools when performing their science of alchemy in an effort to achieve immortality of earthly flesh. Ham's single rebellion reintroduced the post-flood world back to the alchemical knowledge of sexual genetic mixing, which is the foundation stone for the sacred mysteries. His lineage renewed Satan's agenda against God and mankind. Jehovah commanded time and time again that his chosen people refrain from sexual involvement with Ham's descendants, the Canaanites. God made this clear when he blessed the lineage of Noah's son, Shem, to receive the promised land. It was Shem's lineage who eventually removed the Canaanites from this land. Shem's descendants, known to us as Hebrew children, whom Moses led out of Egypt, took over that sacred land just as God had promised. What Jehovah wanted utmost was to keep the good seed separated from the evil, his sheep from Satan's goats. When Ham sought refuge with the devil, his lineage forever remained cursed by God. Even King David stated that God identified the evil of Egypt with Ham. And God smote all the firstborn in Egypt, the chief of their strength, in the tabernacles of Ham. Psalm 78:51. Noah's two sons, Shem and Japheth, had their lineages blessed, not only by their father, but by God. The lineage of Shem produced the Hebrews and the Shemitic-speaking countries. Japheth's lineage went on to establish the Indo-European and Caucasian races. The Bible states that through Japheth's sons, by these were the isles of the Gentiles divided into their lands, everyone after his tongue, after their families in their nations. Genesis 10:5. Ham, Shem, and Japheth became the founding fathers of the races after the great flood. Scripture proclaims these are the three sons of Noah, and of them was the whole earth overspread. Genesis 9:19. This can only be interpreted to mean that all people are genetically related to Shem, Japheth, or Ham. These three men can also be traced back to one single mother of humanity, Eve. Eve was not only the mother of Seth, but of Abel and Cain. Again, it cannot be overemphasized enough that in the end, the final inheritance will be determined for all, both good and evil, based on humanity's beginning, when God separated the sons of Adam. The Most High divided to the nations their inheritance when he separated the sons of Adam. Deuteronomy 32:8. The flood and Noah's Ark is pinnacle to the very existence of who we are. But it was not until 1949 that the United States Air Force photographed a huge structure covered in snow on Mount Ararat in Turkey. These photos were held for many years in a confidential file called Ararat Anomaly. Then in April 2004, satellite photos of Mount Ararat were again taken by Digital Globe. Their imaging technology revealed a man-made object where Noah's Ark is recorded to have come to rest after the flood. The extreme heat in Turkey during the summer of 2003 melted much of the ice covering Mount Ararat, which allowed for enhanced pictures of the boat-like structure. It is only a matter of time before archaeologists are able to prove once and for all that Noah's Ark did and still does exist, just as the Bible accurately records. Of greater significance is that upon such validation, the Ark will ultimately give credence to the fact that we are all truly related. Chapter 4: Megalithic Builders. Long ago, before and after the Great Flood, there existed a unique breed of humanoids with outstanding architectural skills that lived across Europe, the Middle East, Babylon, Egypt, China, and South America. They constructed the oldest and most famous megalithic structures found in these areas. It has been speculated that their remnant returned by way of Ham's tainted lineage after the flood as the teachers and sages of the grooved ware people, whose name is based on the grooves found etched all over their pottery. The grooved ware people who came to settle in Sumer literally brought civilization with them. Their technological skills were unmatched at this point in history. There is historically no doubt that the uneducated inhabitants of Sumer received abundant sacred knowledge from this intelligent race. Their predecessors, the first megalithic builders, were in all probability the giant offspring of the Watchers, who had mated with the daughters of men from Cain's lineage before the flood, as Cain was a builder of cities. According to the Bible, this remaining remnant of the giants whose dragon bloodline had existed before the flood were fearfully encountered by God's chosen people. Years later, during their exodus from Egypt, these giants are referred to as builders of great cities by spies who Moses sent out as they traveled to the promised land. Nevertheless, the people be strong that dwell in the land, and the cities are walled and very great. And moreover, we saw the children of Anak there. And they brought up an evil report of the land which they had searched unto the children of Israel, saying, the land through which we have gone to search it is a land that eateth up the inhabitants thereof. And all the people that we saw are men of great stature. And there we saw the giants, the sons of Anak, which come of the giants, and we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight. Numbers 13, 28, 32 through 33. Whither shall we go up? Our brethren had discouraged our hearts, saying, the people is greater and taller than we. The cities are great and walled up to heaven. And moreover, we have seen the sons of the Anakims there. Deuteronomy 1 and 28. The Emims dwelt there in times past, the people great and many and tall as the Anakims, which also were counted giants as the Anakims, but the Moabites called them Emims. Deuteronomy 2, 10 through 11. That also was accounted a land of giants. Giants dwelt therein in old time. The Ammonites called them Zamzumims, a people great and many and tall as the Anakims. But the Lord destroyed them, and they succeeded them and dwelt in their stead. Deuteronomy 2, 20 through 21. Hear, O Israel, thou art to pass over Jordan this day, to go in to possess nations greater and mightier than thyself, cities great and fenced up to heaven, a people great and tall, the children of the Anakims, whom has heard say, who can stand before the children of Anak? Understand therefore this day that the Lord thy God is he which goeth over before thee as a consuming fire shall destroy them, and he shall bring them down before thy face. So shalt thou drive them out and destroy them quickly, as the Lord hath said unto thee. Deuteronomy 9, 1 through 3. The megalithic builders possessed architectural skills that were and still remain to this day unmatched. Their humongous stone structures used no metals, yet the doors opened with stone hinges, something modern man cannot duplicate. These megalithic builders were extremely intelligent. They were not a bunch of unintelligent cavemen chaotically stacking up big rocks. Instead, everything they did had a scientific reason based on intellectual design. Even after the flood, their remnant, the Groove Ware people, had stone pottery that was skillfully manufactured. Their pottery uniquely displayed a snake-like design very similar to the diamondback rattlesnake's geometric skin patterns. These same unusual features in stone are found around the world on many ancient megalithic monuments, almost like a trademark or designer signature. This snake, dragon, serpent marking is nothing more than the veneration of Satan as their great teacher of knowledge in all ancient cultures where megalithic buildings were constructed. Such symbolism proves there existed a direct relationship and or exchange of knowledge between groups who built all megalithic monuments before the flood and those that resurfaced with similar knowledge after the flood. The stone structures of Europe are believed to be a lot older than the first known civilization in Sumer. These European megalithic builders of stone were accomplished scientists, astronomers, and mathematicians who possessed their own written language. They mysteriously disappeared without a trace, just like the other megalithic builders around the world had seemingly done, including those who lived in South America, Cambodia, and Easter Island, to name a few. After the sudden disappearance of megalithic builders in Europe, a group a group known as the Druids inherited these ancient sacred rites. Druids, a mystical religious sect and dragon cult, possessed great knowledge regarding the earth sciences and astronomy. They were aware of the motion of stars, the size of our universe, and unique characteristics of the laws of nature in regard to earth. Centuries ago, these unusual people claimed our sun, not earth, was center of our universe. These Druids even had an in-depth knowledge of natural philosophy, so much so that they worshiped the very nature of Mother Earth. This same nature worship continues today within secret societies under their religious title of theosophy. Most importantly, Druids believed in reincarnation and an afterlife. Like megalithic builders before them, Druids were well educated in the sciences of mathematics and numerology, all major components that control movement of our universe. Because of such similarities, there have to have been a major exchange of ideas between pre-flood megalithic builders, that remnants after the flood, and the Druids. Western Europe's landscape is filled with megalithic structures such as stone circles, dolmens, long barrows, and solar temples. These enormous stone monuments are strategically situated on telluric energy sites. Telluric energy, or earth currents as they are sometimes called, is a form of terrestrial grid energy that runs through the earth. This energy can be located by using an ancient method of hunting underground water called dowsing. The stone structures are not only located over these earth currents, but are aligned perfectly to mirror various stars and planets in the heavens at assigned times in the future. The most amazing characteristic of these structures is that they were all constructed without the structural aid of metal by a people who were well versed in the skill of metallurgy. These people were able to cut stone and then position it where only diminutive seams showed between the huge blocks. This particular stone technology, which was used by these builders, is by far more skillfully advanced than anything we presently have the technology to match. We cannot begin to construct similar structures to the degree and accuracy that was used in their construction thousands of years ago. The following is a short list of some of the most famous megalithic structures built around the world: Stonehenge in Avebury, Britain; in Newgrange, Ireland; Pyramids, Egypt; Mysho, Scotland; Temple of Angkor Wat, Cambodia; Olmec Head, Gulf of Mexico; Step Pyramids, Mexico; the Maui Easter Island; Nazca, Nazca Lines, Peru; Stellar Pyramid, Incas; and Machu Picchu, Peru. All megalithic structures are aligned to heavenly bodies. The use of stone and wood without metal is the very basis of their elaborate construction. This particular architectural feat is considered to be a mastery of the ancient system of sacred geometry. There are many instances where the stone's alignments on the ground are celestial in nature and perfectly mirror entire constellations, which allows them to be dated to a specific time period using a science called archaeoastronomy. These sacred sites on which the megalithic structures were built were believed to be capable of transforming initiates into gods through a form of rebirth through transmitted spiritual knowledge. It appears that there existed some form of invisible college among these megalithic builders in order to preserve their mysterious legacy of sacred knowledge in stone before the flood. This invisible college of builders was, no doubt, an organization of initiates trained in the sacred sciences. Their sole purpose was to build megalithic structures as a spiritual representation to oppose the universal force of ignorance. Many of their sites venerated the serpent as the true bringer of light and knowledge to mankind. They believed the creator of the universe wished to keep man from his fullest potential by denying him access to knowledge, thereby keeping him in darkness. These builders believed that this force of darkness was preventing mankind from finding their own spark of divinity within oneself to be like God. They believed ignorance was the mother of all evil, which produced nothing more than a slave. To these builders, knowledge meant light and freedom from Jehovah's slavery of darkness. The invisible college of builders set out to release mankind from the cosmic damnation of ignorance. They preached that God, the Creator, was a dark force who was chaining mankind to spiritual ignorance with no hope of enlightenment or immortality. The megalithic builders praised the wise serpent as their true hero in the Garden of Eden scenario. They taught that it was Satan who saved mankind from being slaves to ignorant darkness. Satan tempting Eve to eat of his forbidden tree of knowledge was, according to their belief, a wonderful way to awaken Adam and Eve to their sexual nature. But in reality, by the grace of God, after Satan's beguiling temptation of Adam and Eve, they were kept from eating of the tree of life by God, so they would not become fallen beings like Satan, who was in an immortal state forever without any hope of redemption or salvation. This college further taught that the Creator, Jehovah, was a jealous God who did not want anyone to be like him. That alone is the only reason they believed he removed Adam and Eve from the garden. In reality, God did not want Adam and Eve to also eat of the tree of life and live forever in a fallen state with their sinfully acquired knowledge of good and evil. If they had accomplished such a feat, then yes, they would have become immortal and spiritually immoral or evil with no chance of redemption, like Satan and his fallen angels. As long as Adam and Eve remained mortal with the knowledge of good and evil, then the chance of redemption through their choice to follow God could sustain them from eternal damnation, which had first been reserved for Satan and his fallen angels. Satan could have cared less that Adam and Eve would have become eternally damned like him. He just wanted control over God's creation by fathering an opposing seed line. Once Cain was born outside the garden, Satan and his angels began their constant campaign of offering Cain's lineage an abridged form of sacred knowledge as a gift for joining in Satan's ongoing rebellion against God. Satan deceptively has taunted every human since that day with the promise that if they joined him, he would give them enlightenment into the materialistic sciences of nature. Through the craft of manipulating and counterfeiting the world, Satan has revealed to his initiates that with his knowledge of the hidden mysteries, they might one day be able to recreate heaven on earth. In other words, if they could redesign their own DNA without a death gene, they would not need a tree of life or the needed blessings of Jehovah. The quest for such enlightenment from the moment man was expelled from Eden has been to regain paradise on their own instead of seeking forgiveness through God's plan of salvation. Through advanced sciences and technology, which were first taught to mankind by the megalithic builders, we are today nearing completion of Satan and his seed line's rebellious agenda. Biotechnology has recently unlocked the building blocks of mankind, our DNA. DNA is a genetic blueprint that has the power to offer immortality to the living by identifying and blocking unwanted genes. Through a regeneration process known as cloning, The cells of the body can then be replicated without the defective genes. It is from the understanding of architectural sciences that biogeneticists are now unlocking the structure of our temples within which we live. Our generation is reaching the goal Satan promised. Science is enabling us to regenerate our body and remove any darkness of ignorance that is interfering in our quest. Satan's sacred knowledge is deceiving mankind into believing that we have creative power to be like God. With the manipulative powers of cloning, we are capable of creating what we think will be a way around God's plan for us to die and be judged by Him for our sins. Through genetic manipulation, scientists are attempting to perfect an earthly paradise by creating a new and improved Garden of Eden. As descendants of Adam and Eve, we were born with the knowledge of good and evil. Soon, those attempting to play God will try to eat of the tree of life by unlocking the so-called spark of divinity held within each cell's DNA, which controls death. Mankind will then worship the created and not the creator. This is what Satan wanted humanity to do in the first place when he tempted Eve in the Garden of Eden. His next step was to get us where we are today, possessing sacred knowledge to create our own heaven on earth. Remnants of the megalithic builders moved into the Mesopotamian and Sumerian area where they intermingled with humans following the flood. Their interbreeding assisted in exploding this area from that of wandering tribes to a well-advanced civilization overnight. Society became well established. All the sciences, which included architecture, astronomy, geometry, written language, and communication, became advanced. The Sumerian civilization possessed highly developed skills regarding their genealogies, domestication of animals, agriculture, cloth weaving, and building of megalithic structures like the Tower of Babel. Grooved ware people, the megalithic builders' remnant bloodline, became teachers of the Sumerians. As these grooved ware people disappeared, their descendants continued to possess scientific skills and knowledge. Henry Frankfurt, an expert in Sumerian culture, stated the problem of the origin of the Sumerians may well turn out to be the case of a chimera. The term chimera derives itself from a mythical Greek creature that was said to possess a lion's head, a goat's body, and a serpent's tail. These forms of animal-human hybrids were once considered fantasy, but in recent years, scientists have created sheep with human livers and hearts, as well as pigs possessing human blood. According to Chuck Missler's personal update dated January 2006, his article entitled Of Mice and Men, page 14, scientists at the Salk Institute in San Diego recently announced that they have successfully engineered mice that possess a small percentage of human brain cells. Scientists injected human embryonic stem cells into the brains of rodent fetuses, resulting in the birth of mice with both human and rodent brain cells. The article goes on to report that Irving Wiseman, Stanford University, conducted a similar experiment using rodents. Wiseman and his team injected human neural stem cells into mouse fetuses. Wiseman also helped make the first mouse with a nearly complete human immune system. Although the percentage of human brain cells in the existing mice is only about 1%, Wiseman said he is considering making chimeric mice whose brains are made entirely of human cells. Can you imagine how much rat poison it would take to kill a human rat? On top of that, the movie Ben, where the little boy talked to the rats, may not be so science fiction after all. Before long, we will all be a bunch of Dr. Doolittles who can talk to the animals. Of course, humans could end up in deep trouble and be caged up, like in the movie The Planet of the Apes. Animals banding together with improved communication ability, along with their strength, and far more capable to win at the battle of survival of the fittest. Jurassic Park may soon be at our back doorstep quicker than you think if mankind does not get a grip on trying to play God. You might be thinking that this could never happen because there are laws in place to stop such horrific experiments. Sorry, but there are no federal guidelines to regulate or to put a stop to mixing humans and animals together. These scientific experiments, probably using our tax dollars, are going on right under our noses and more than likely are the real reason why there are so many new diseases jumping from animals to humans. For example, in the last several years, the world has encountered Zika virus, mosquitoes, H5N1, bird flu, birds, mad cow, beef, swine fever, pigs, SARS, avian flu, chickens, mercury poisons, tuna, fish, West Nile virus, mosquitoes, Hanta virus, mousepox, bubonic plague, rats, rabies, raccoons, bats, dogs, cats, etc., rabbit fever, RHDV, rabbits, and tick fever, Lyme disease, ticks. These crossover viruses from the beast of the earth to humans are predicted to increase near the end of the age. So, if the Sumerians of ancient days were chimeras, that can only mean that they were also hybrids. A hybrid is an offspring of genetically differing parents. A perfect example of a chimera would be the sexual union between the fallen angels and the daughters of men, which produced giants mentioned in the book of Genesis. Archaeological discoveries has established that the Sumerians were tall with extremely large eyes. They had very obvious serpentine features and described the serpent as their great wise one. People with this same mixture of human, ooh, I guess it's not right here. Get the book. Okay, people with this same mixture of human and serpent like physical traits, who also exhibited a love for serpents as wise beings, were discovered by archaeologists who have lived in the area around the Black Sea, England, and Ireland. It is quite possible that herein lies some proof that the megalithic builders were a master race, birthed from the seed line of Satan and his fallen angels, which existed before the flood and whose bloodline continued after the flood through Ham's tainted lineage. The Sumerian written language is very unique. It utilizes a style of writing called wedge-shaped cuneiform. This writing appears to have links to the earlier symbols used by the grooved ware people. In 1853, Sir Henry Rollins, an Assyriologist, found a script dating from before the Sumerian writings that he believed came from Central Europe. This could be the link between the European megalithic builders and the Sumerians. Rollins believed the script to be Scythian. It is quite possible that the Sumerian people are descendants from the Black Sea regions, as Scythians were considered a wandering people of Asia and Europe. The Sumerians were highly educated. In fact, they were thousands of years ahead of any possible natural time period needed to obtain such intelligent human evolution. Many archaeological discoveries have been unearthed in the Sumerian region. Everything from literature to records of society, culture, and administration has been unearthed and found written on cylinder seals and clay tablets. Cylinder seals are tablets made in reverse so that they can be used to make copies to be distributed. They were ancient forms of printing presses and copy machines. These tablets were very effective in educating the people of Sumer. Understanding written language was the major key. It was needed to successfully indoctrinate the uneducated into the sacred knowledge of the megalithic builders that had existed before the flood. New civilizations had to be able to assimilate the mysteries written upon the two pillars that survived the flood in order to keep Satan's rebellion against God going in full swing. According to Masonic legend, the two pillars of knowledge had everything that was, is, or shall ever be inscribed on them. The Sumerian civilization, with their highly developed written language, was able to effectively receive the secrets of wisdom and the sciences of heaven from the knowledge imparted to them by watchers. This sacred knowledge, which had been written on these pillars, was, as we have already learned, inscribed on emerald by Ham and became what is known as the Tablets of Destiny. Through these tablets, mankind was able to be re-educated into the sciences of the hidden mysteries of nature. In other words, through written language, the craft or thoroughbred genetic manipulation was reborn following the flood. In practice, this meant reconstituting the serpent lineage's recessive traits still in Ham's lineage of Canaan, which was almost lost in the flood, into full dominant traits of DNA. This allowed Satan's royal lineage to once again proliferate and practice his evil sacred sciences. Sons of Ham's lineage kept having sex with their mothers, just like he had done and birthed Canaan, in order to produce a son with dominant serpent traits. Then the serpent lineage began building huge structures to connect to their father, Satan. It had been this knowledge of the craft that the megalithic builders used in their construction of all their ancient stone circles and sacred monuments by precisely aligning them up with the sun, moon, stars, and certain constellations. Their sacred sites still exhibit a force that produces physical manifestations upon the body. These manifestations come in the form of altered levels of consciousness, anxiety, dizziness, weakness, nervousness, fainting, fast heartbeat, nausea, healings, and heightened awareness. Water plays a significant role beneath or around these megalithic structures, which were strategically placed over earth currents to produce a type of electromagnetic extremely low frequency wave, or ELF, from natural telluric energy fields. Using the ancient technique mentioned earlier called dowsing, one can find these underground water sources simply through the pull of their low frequency waves upon the body. A majority of today's crop circles have been found near the locations of ancient megalithic structures, as well over these same telluric energy sites where underground water exists. Ancient megalithic structures appear to use underground water sources to attract electricity. They are all located on stress lines within the Earth's crust. These stress or laid dragon lines, as they are sometimes called, moved in harmony with the Earth's tectonic plates. When these plates shift, they produced electromagnetic energy fields. Megalithic structures were designed based on sacred geometry to transmit these currents into the human body for an illuminating experience. Their builders knew exactly what they were doing in order to indoctrinate one into accepting Satan as Lord. Masonic rituals require that new members have no metal on them at the time of initiation. Members go as far as to cover a wedding band with tape, although they prefer that it is removed. Their predecessors, the Knights Templar, constructed huge cathedrals throughout Europe without combining metal and stone. The reason is that the combination of the two will not produce a vibratory response to attract electromagnetic energy. Masons want to make sure initiates receive a vibratory response during their rituals, and that is why they want all metal removed from the body. The skillful working of stone and metal was part of the secret archaeological mysteries employed by the megalithic builders who were the descendants of Cain. According to the Bible, the lineage of Cain, which continued through Ham's son, Canaan, and his descendants, did possess great skills in metal working. The book of Joshua reads, "And the children of Joseph said, the heel is not enough for us. And the Canaanites that dwell in the land of the valley have chariots of iron. Thou shalt not drive out the Canaanites, though they have iron chariots, and though they be strong." Joshua 17, 16, 18. According to scripture, God did not approve of sacrificial altars that had been cut using man's tools. He told Abram that the stone was polluted if it was reworked by human hands. Builders were in direct opposition to God's plan because they believed they were perfecting the rough stone. In God's eyes, the stone was already perfect as he had created it. It did not need man's hand to add to or take from it. God saw Cain's lineage as attempting to recreate the world to their agenda by worshiping their creations instead of his. The megalithic builders, along with their descendants, were and still are following Satan's rebellious plan to destroy God's original creation. And that ends chapter 4. Next episode will be chapter 5, the Epic of Gilgamesh. Please stay tuned. Thank you all for listening. I hope you all are having a wonderful evening, morning, wherever you are in the world. I myself am about to go watch a movie and go to bed. Peace to the Middle East from the West Side, even though I'm in the East, whatever. South, whatever. All right, y'all. Good night.